We're joined now by Dick Newby, leader of the Lib Dems in the House of Lords. He was chair of the Manifesto Working Group. He's with us now. Welcome to the programme. Let me just clarify, in case viewers don't know, your party has ruled out joining any kind of coalition after this election.
Yes,
so you wouldn't be in any kind of government.
No, we would not. No. We're in the same position as the Labour Party. So we know who the government's going to be after the next election, and we're just being rather more honest about it.
Who's going to be the government?
It's going to be the Conservative Party.
All right. But if you're not going to join any coalition, what's the point of going through any of these policies with you?
Well, I think people want to know, when they're voting for us, what kind of country we want to live in.
Yeah, but you're not going to have a chance to implement it if you're not going into government. So what's the point?
But people vote for people who share their values and share their views about how the country should go going forward. And that's why you have a manifesto.
Yeah, but if the values, as you are claiming, are going to be the values of a May government, I assume you're going to win it by a landslide, and you would not get involved in any kind of coalition that could stop that from happening, then I say your policies are, what you stand for is irrelevant.
No, they're not.
The details are irrelevant.
No, they're not, because on a day-to-day basis, from the day Parliament gets back, we are going to be debating the government's policies and we're going to be voting on them. And the manifesto gives a guide to people about how we're going to behave and what we're going to be doing in the next Parliament.
All right. One of the policies you do have is to have a second referendum, a referendum on the deal if and when a deal for Brexit is done. Is that correct?
Yes, that is absolutely right.
Who said that a second referendum was, quote, disrespectful to the voters and counterproductive? Who also said if you're having two referendums, you might as well have three.
Well,
who said that?
It doesn't matter who said it.
Well, I'll tell you who said it. Vince Cable said it.
Yes.
Of the Lib Dems, who's now on your front bench team.
Yes, well,
disrespectful.
What we're saying is that people voted for a departure. They've no idea last year what they were going to get. So we say, at the end of the process, there are only two lots of people who can decide what we do about Brexit, either MPs or the people. If MPs if had been left to MPs before the last referendum, they were completely out of touch with the people. So we think a process started by the people should be completed by the people.
But if the European Union knows that there's going to be a referendum on the outcome of the negotiations, that gives them a huge incentive to give us the worst possible deal.
No, I think you're pinning too much faith on the powers of persuasion of the Lib Dems there. People in Europe...
Well, I've never made that mistake before.
Well, no, well, I didn't think you had, but I think you are now. I think that people in Europe are negotiating on the basis of getting a deal which they think is in the long-term interests of the EU, on the basis that we will leave. That's the only way they can do it. But it doesn't mean that that rules out us having a final say on it.
But if I'm negotiating for Brussels and you're negotiating for Britain, and I know that you have to put whatever we agree to the British people, I'm going to try and give you a punishment beating so that the British people think, whoa, we didn't realise it was going to be as bad as this. We're going to need visas to go there. We can't work anymore. Whoa, let's vote against it. I'm not going to give you a free trade agreement. I'm not going to give you tariff-free trade, am I?
But why does that work for the British people and not for parliamentarians? I mean, somebody decides, Andrew. It isn't just the Prime Minister. You have one body of people deciding in Parliament or a larger body of people, the country deciding. They're both going to react in the same sort of way to the attitude and the deal that comes out of Brussels, surely.
When would this referendum be?
Well, the Prime Minister says she can complete the negotiations within the time frame, so you would have it when she'd come back with a deal.
Would there be enough time?
Well, she says there is, so we're taking her at her word.
She's not been that explicit of when it can be done.
Well,
is it your contention that if the country was to vote against the deal, that we would just seamlessly stay in the EU?
That would be the proposition.
Well, who in Brussels has ever led you to believe that would be the case?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that from all the lawyers, from someone like Lord Kerr, who actually wrote Article 50, that it is revocable. You can stop the process if you want to do.
But have you had any indication from Brussels that that is the case? That's how they view it? Or have the European Court of Justice views it that way?
Senior jurists in the EU have said that the article is revocable. And we
Who are
believe
these
it
senior
to be,
jurists?
well, former advisors to the Commission, former members of the European Court of Justice. Well, I haven't got a list of their names, but there's a long list of names. And John Kerr, who, as I say, wrote it.
Right, but he, of course, is just an observer now.
Yeah, but he knew what was in people's minds when it was written, because he had the pen.
I suggest he didn't, because when he wrote it, he never thought it would happen. He wrote it as an entirely academic exercise.
Well, he's not a sort of flippant sort of chap.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. He just didn't think it would happen. You didn't think it would happen.
Well, nobody thought it was going to happen, did they?
Oh, no, some people did. I mean, a lot of people didn't. One of them was Nick Clegg. And I just want to run you this clip of what he said. This is just before the country gave its verdict on Brexit, and he was speaking at the Oxford Union. He was debating with Nigel Farage. It was back in December 2015, before we got to the referendum.
Sure.
But what would happen if we had one? This is Mr. Clegg.
There will be some voices, and I hope it won't be Nigel or Sir William, because I think this is a fate that shouldn't befall them. They're decent characters. There will be some people. There will be some people who, like those Japanese soldiers who continued fighting the last war because no one had told them it had ended in some Pacific island, who will carry on arguing and arguing and arguing. The rest of us will just move on and carry on with the rest of our lives.
Now, that was Mr. Clegg talking about the die-hard leavers that wouldn't accept the result of the referendum. I put it to you that this country, having voted to leave, in your view, is about to elect a government with a landslide, with a mandate to push ahead with the Brexit negotiations. It's the Liberal Democrats who are now the Japanese soldiers in the jungle, and you don't realise the war's over and you lost.
No, I don't think we are the Japanese soldiers. I've been called many things in the past. This is a novelty for me, and I don't think
it's very appropriate. What bit of it's wrong? You're in denial.
But we're not at all in denial. We're saying to people, you decided you wanted to go down this path. And we're saying, when you know where the path's leading, so certainly didn't know where it was leading last year, you know where the path's leading, you then decide whether you agree that that's the path down which you want to go.
But Mrs May, I mean, she obviously can't go into all the details because the negotiations haven't even started, but she is essentially fighting this election on the Lancaster House speech. And in that, she's made it clear we cannot remain as members of the single market. We will not remain members of the customs union. We will not be subject to the jurisdiction of the ECJ. We will attempt to negotiate as wide as possible a free trade deal as is possible, with all these other commitments about taking back control as she sees it. We know the broad outlines of what she's going to attempt to achieve, don't we? And she's going to, in your view, not mine, in your view, she's going to get a mandate for all that.
But she's going to get a mandate to be Prime Minister because there is no opposition coming from the Labour Party. People are not all voting on Brexit in this general election. They're voting about whether they think Jeremy Corbyn is fit to be Prime Minister.
Hold on, Dick. Your whole appeal in this campaign has to be on Brexit. That's your distinguishing point.
But
that's the one thing that does distinguish
it does distinguish us, and that's on which we're fighting.
Which is what makes you a Japanese soldier in the jungle. Let me tell you, soldier, the war, it's over, you lost. It's gone. Come on out, put your hands up, leave your rifle, we'll look after you.
No, somebody decides, Andrew, at the end. Is it MPs? Is it the people? We think it should be the people.
The people will have decided twice. They'll have decided in the referendum and in this election.
No, because we don't know the deal.
You want for a hat trick?
We know what the Prime Minister wants, which is a large measure of having your cake and eat it. We don't know what she's going to get. And so many of the things that were promised a year ago definitely aren't going to happen. So who knows where we're going to be at the end of the process?
Your whole election strategy has been based on the 48% who vote Remain. You want to try and pick up as many of them. But the latest YouGov poll suggests you've misread the mood of the British people. It no longer exists, this 48%. The country now seems to divide into 45% are hard leavers. They're hard leavers, not as much as the 52 who voted.
Right.
They're hard leavers. 23% are relievers. They are voted to remain, but they accept the outcome. They have come out of the jungle, put their hands up and said, yeah, we know the war's over. And only 22% are hard remainers, and you're struggling even to get them. The strategy is flawed.
No. We fight elections on what we believe. We believe that the people should have a final say. But we're also fighting, as Joe was explaining, about how do you fund the NHS on a sustainable basis? How do you stop schools having cuts per pupil of, in some cases, over 10%? All these are things that we're talking about on the doorstep. Some people have Brexit at the top of their minds. A lot of people don't, frankly. A lot of people are much more interested in whether they can get to hospital quickly. So we're setting out how you would deal with those problems as well.
Would it be fair to say then that your manifesto, which you admit you will have no chance of implementing, will be at least a guide as to how you will vote in Parliament under the next government? That's
it
what
is,
we
absolutely.
All right. All right. What would be a good result for you?
Oh, a good result would be a significant increase in votes and seats.
What would significant be?
Well, significant means substantial.
And what does substantial mean?
Well, it's roughly the same as significant.
And to put a number on either of them, what would you think?
Only a fool would do that.
What's it like in the jungle?
I'm enjoying it.
Leave him alone.